We must take the time to work with our hands, because that's the heart of art, and that is the heart of innovation.
Inspiration for both young and old alike. Tonight, a look at how these TED Talks are also aimed at future generations. This is What Matters. Good evening, I'm Cathy Lewis. A few months back, we told you about an exciting event where brilliant ideas are shared on a bare stage to eager listeners. They're called TED Talks, and earlier this month, the folks at NASA-Langley in Hampton presented their second such program. Joining us to recap TEDxNASA is Steve Kraft, who is the event coordinator, and also with us is Hayley Foster, who's the lead coordinator and the programming director for this weekend's Next Generation TEDxYouth at NASA-Langley. Thanks to both of you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
This has been such a phenomenon, hasn't it? And
it has.
From the first presentation a year ago to this one, you had I started to say a sellout crowd. That's not really quite fair because they're free tickets.
Right.
You had a free out crowd, I guess. Huh? Is that fair enough?
That's fair.
It's huge.
That's fair. Yeah. In fact, we had trouble with parking. I mean,
really?
we couldn't park the cars.
The numbers I heard was 1,700. Is that?
Yeah, I think the Ferguson holds 1,650, and we probably overdid it just a little.
You bagged your limit, did you?
Yeah.
So how did it go? What was exciting for you?
I thought it was really well. I thought that the speakers this year were a slightly different flavor than last year. We had a little more technical content, and but I thought our speakers again were just phenomenal, and I think the reaction from the community and from the crowd was just great.
And just to reiterate for our guests who may not have seen one of our earlier programs on this, these are described, and I love the way this is described, as giving the talk of your life. It's sort of 18 minutes of everything you really wanted to say.
You've got a couple of minutes basically to give the talk of your life, and that's really how we coach them too. I mean, so these speakers that come in, many of them have spoken before, but not kind of in this challenge of, the talk of your life in 18 minutes or less.
And this idea of innovation really seems to be at the core of all of this, doesn't it? I mean, it's the thing that business is looking for. It's the thing we're looking for as a nation. And I wonder if you would just sort of explain what you're hoping for in terms of that connection.
Yeah, so NASA is kind of looked at as one of the keys for innovation in the country, and one of the things that we've been kind of growing at NASA-Langley is this idea that diversity of thought is really a key part of innovation. And so what we've done with these TEDxNASA things is we've brought in this whole mixture of things, so there's a couple scientists, there's a couple artists, there's a couple musicians, and it's a whole mixture of things. And I think there's a lot of research out right now that shows that this diversity of thought and bringing, this kind of thing together has really been successful in generating new ideas and breakthrough ideas.
So I don't know if you're going to get a site big enough for next year, because we're bringing folks some little clips from the conference. You'll be so inspired you better get your tickets early, is how that goes. But set it up for us, if you will. We've got Jim Green up first, who's the director of the Planetary Science Division at NASA.
Okay, so just by happenstance, I wish I could say I planned it this way, but that day on November 4th, there was an interception of a satellite and a comet. So it was NASA, this was the fourth time that we were actually intercepting a comet, and we were taking images and data from the comet. And real time, what we showed at TEDxNASA, real time it wasn't the actual satellite, because we couldn't get that, but we showed a 3D image of it coming around and taking pictures and images of the comet. And Jim described that. What's neat about comets is, they're figuring out now that they may have played a bigger role than we thought in early life on Earth. So, for example, they found certain elements in comets and things that were kind of the building blocks of life. And so it could have been that a comet hit the Earth, and that was how life started. So, I mean, there's so much more interesting, cool stuff out there.
So I don't want to say that Jim Green is demystifying this, because the mystery is the really cool part. So here's Jim Green.
So here is the data from Hartley. This is one of the first images that was sent down. Not all the data is here yet, but this tells us the spacecraft survived. It turned its antenna towards us 30 minutes after it made the encounter, and it took the last 2 hours getting the data back. This comet is unbelievable. It doesn't look like any of the others in many ways. It has these smooth features between these two nodules. Some of these nodules are very rough. It is incredibly active. We see material being poured out in every direction. And we were talking about classifying this object with the rest. And perhaps we're missing the point. Perhaps what we're really looking at is an evolution of how these comets live and die as they go around the sun. Now, what matters next is that we have another comet encounter. We're going to go back to Temple 1. We're going to fly by Temple 1 in February 14th, as a matter of fact, and we're going to look at it with a spacecraft called Stardust. And the importance behind that is that comet has already gone around the sun. It's already gone through its maximum sublimation phase, and we will look at it after that has occurred. So we will see the before and after of that evolutionary stage of blasting material, sublimating that material, and pouring it out into the solar system. That will truly be exciting, and that's what matters next. And I want to end with this particular picture. This turns out to be one of my favorites. It's actually Cassini measuring Saturn in the dark, and it took 12 hours to make this. The sun is on the other side of the planet. What's really exciting about this, the light that we receive is reflected off the rings, reflected off the planet, reflected off the rings, and comes back to us. Very dim light, and we've seen it. But the discovery here is right there. If you can see the dot, that is Earth. And we're beaming the data that you're seeing back through the rings to Earth. The small, blue, beautiful, beautiful Earth. And that's what matters next. Thank you very much.
Boy, you got to love that passion. That's an extraordinary talk. I'm glad to have Hayley Foster with us as well, who is working on, and I love the title of this, the youth program. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But one of the two lines that Mr. Green noted was, "What matters next?" And we like those first two words a lot around here, as you might imagine. But that concept, it seems, is really important when you're looking at the juncture of science and art, isn't it?
Well, our program has a specific vision in mind. So this is one of a multitude of Youth Day events put on by TEDx organizers. There's going to be one in every time zone around the world for 24 hours on November 20th, over 60. And ours is in support of President Obama's initiative for STEM education. We are looking for kids who are between the ages of 13 and 18 who are curious and bright and promising but aren't pursuing STEM-related careers. And so we're going to put them in an enriched environment and get them excited about technology and science, and then we're going to hit them with all kinds of personal development and poetry and art and music, and hopefully they'll walk away thinking they can do whatever they want to, and some of that might have to do with the STEM career.
This is really so important as we think about building the future workforce and the future thinking force, and which is really the bigger issue there, is the role of STEM in all of this. I mean, there's some sense that we have challenges with science, but we're kind of doing it. We're doing technology, we're doing math. It's that engineering piece that seems to sometimes get lost in the equation. So this is a great opportunity to kind of integrate those ideas for young people.
Yes, it is. And also, we are trying to bring in other careers that support these STEM-related careers. So we have people who at the break will do a career discussion with the youth, and they will be social networking experts. You mean I can Facebook for a living? Yes, you can, right. Because that's how everything is going to be supported in the future. And there are all of these other careers that also have to do with STEM that support being an engineer or being a rocket scientist or being a researcher. And we need all of those people. We need to excite the youth now, because if we don't, we'll have no more engineers or no more technology in 10 years than we do right now.
So this is coming up tomorrow.
It is. It's going to be from 4 p.m. until 9 p.m. at the Virginia Air and Space Center.
So if someone sees this tonight, would it be possible to register for it at this point?
Probably not.
Okay.
The reason is we went through all of the WHRO.
Save people the problems, right?
Yes. WHRO's school districts, owner school districts, in order to reach people all over who don't get exposed to this. And so we went to the 18 school districts. They selected student delegates, which were identified by population, and those allocations were
so if you haven't gotten a letter yet, don't try to show
up. But what you can do, which is really exciting, is it's going to be like TEDxNASA live streamed. So you can go to TEDxNASA.com or TEDxNASA. What is it? TEDxNASA/youth.com, and you can live stream the event in your own home from 5 to 8 and see all of the presentations.
That's great.
So you won't get the exhibits, but you'll get all of that great information.
And you know, the marvelous thing about this is that, again, it's a nationwide program, and the one element of which has been brought to this community by people who just were interested in the folks at this table and others over at NASA just thought this was a neat idea. So our next, I love this, Oliver Uberty, okay,
right,
who's a visual journalist and a designer with National Geographic magazine. What was special about his presentation?
I have to say he was one of my favorites because he really showed what a lot of people don't know about me is I was a mechanic before I became a rocket scientist. And so a lot of what he's saying is a lot of the good art that you see in National Geographic and the pictures that you see and things take a lot of time to get that perfect shot. And what he's saying is it also takes a lot of work with your hands.
Right.
And so he is combining this whole, work with your hands, do art, and create these wonderful digital pictures that last forever. But he's kind of combining the art and the working with your hands and other things. And I think anybody that looks at National Geographic can see the special nature of how critical of an eye they have, and the creativity, and also
and the patience to wait for that shot.
Exactly. I mean, they're so meticulous about every shot.
Yeah, this one will be just as good.
So part of what he's saying is, part of his message is that sometimes if you want to create something really great, it takes time.
So this is Oliver Uberty with the heart of art and innovation.
Because when I told our editors that I'd like to do a story on Gaudí and this church, they were like, yeah, nature, religion, architecture, art, the world, sure, done. My coworker, Fernando Baptista, one of our graphic editors, grew up in Spain, has been longing to draw this church his entire life. So that's what we did. This is a 4-page gatefold that's in the upcoming December issue of the magazine. And it's all hand-drawn by my friend Fernando Baptista. What you're seeing here is something that does not exist yet. All those gray areas, all the gray areas are the towers that haven't been built. The facade in the front that has not been built. But Fernando worked with the architects in Spain, working from Gaudí's original models, to produce this for you. Now, I believe something magical happened here when you just saw this. I heard a little bit of gasp in the room. And I believe that when Fernando was drawing this, perhaps unbeknownst to him, little bits of his soul came up through his body, passed through his archives of experience, down through his arm, activating muscle memory, through his fingers, onto his pencil and into the paper. And when you gazed upon this work, all that soul that he invested leapt off the screen, entered through your eyes, all the little rods and cones, through your archives of experience, and came to rest inside your soul. This sharing of souls is the bond between a creator and the viewer. When you look at a piece like this, in a sense, you are tasting your mother's butter cookies. You don't get that same experience with store-bought cookies. And you do not get that same experience when we, in whatever field that we hail from, press the buttons. So we must smash these buttons. Yeah, the purpose of a button is to replicate results. It's to be predictable, but art is not predictable, and the human spirit is not predictable. So we must smash these buttons. We must experiment. We must take the time to work with our hands. Because that's the heart of art, and that is the heart of innovation. Thank you for your time.
It's just a really extraordinary opportunity to make those connections that in our hustle-bustle day-to-day world we don't really get to make or to sit and think about. And that's one of the things I think is so great about this program. I think that's one of the reasons it's probably been successful, is so many people love that opportunity to engage their brain in a more meaningful way than they get to on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, and I think that we're going to tap into that with the kids, because we're going to be tapping on partitions in their brains that have been closed by standard educational process, and we're going to open those up, and we're going to hopefully cross-pollinate in their own brains, as well as let in information that they don't usually get to hear. So we have, as I said, we have a lineup that includes science speakers and also personal development. And we have 10 different exhibits, so there will be a lot of interaction. It will be very saturated with new experience for them.
Do you have the sense, this is the first year for the youth program, second year for TEDxNASA, do you have the sense that you've convinced enough people at NASA that this is a going deal? I mean, you know, when you exceed the bounds of the Ferguson, I think that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, so it did, you know, as you know, last year we pushed up pretty hard against you know, conventional thinking about this kind of thing.
Yes.
And this year it's been much more accepted. And one of the things I'll say is we had over 100 people there from other centers.
Wow, and just wanting to know how to do it.
And the day after TEDxNASA, we put on a workshop for our young professionals and taught them how to do a TEDxNASA.
Oh,
so,
great.
You know, we hope to expand this to all 10 centers.
Well, I tell you,
it's not just something that we do here, that it's something that NASA picks up and does at all 10 centers.
Gosh, it would be amazing. I want to be sure that we may not get to this entire clip, but we'll get to as much of it, I suppose, as we can, because we also want to try to let you know what people thought about this. But Sean Forbes, a deaf rapper.
Yeah. So Sean is a remarkable kid with a great vision. And when you say deaf rapper, you know, deaf is DEF sometimes, but in this case, he really is deaf. He's he was born with hearing impairment, and I think the message that he sends, though, is really, really interesting, and that is, a lot of people assumed that since he was deaf that he wouldn't understand music, or he wouldn't have music in his soul. You know, you heard Oliver talk about your soul, and Sean definitely has music in his soul, and was, you know, drawn to music even though he couldn't hear. He was drawn to music, and so now he raps, and it's his way of expressing his music, and it's fantastic. To talk to him, you know, maybe rap music isn't my big thing, but I have to say that his vision and his energy around this and bringing this to other deaf people, I think, has just been phenomenal.
It's the infectious idea of joy in it too. So here's Sean Forbes, who is a deaf rapper.
I have a challenge for you all. I challenge all of you scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers, to help the deaf and hard of hearing community come up with some crazy technology, cool hearing aids that can better help us hear music, and technology that can help us feel music. So I have one more song for you all tonight, and it's called I'm Deaf, because I am. And if you notice in my music, I like to show the words. So I can emphasize what I'm saying for the deaf and hard of hearing community with not only sign language, but with words and other things involved, like visuals, to represent the music. Deaf in the deaf kid, so deaf. Deaf in the deaf kid. So deaf. My
name is Sean, but they call me Scene. Got a message here I'm delivering. Look, I understand that you might be leery, getting music beats from the heart of hearing. Something inside me is so intense. Evidently it's bringing out my sixth sense. My hands talk dirty, mama wash them with soap. I play the devil's advocate against my horoscope. And if I cut my ear off like Van Gogh, would it matter? Cause you might use your wind blows. Deaf and deaf, Jim, I'm so deaf. Deaf and deaf, but I'll make a bullet go deaf. I got deaf tones, but I'm not tone deaf. I stopped stating the obvious, but I ain't done yet.
Sean Forbes. And so, Steve, you were saying that this young man actually met Eminem, whose manager is partially deaf?
I think his manager or somebody that works with Eminem is partially deaf, and so they somehow made a connection originally, and then Eminem helped him to put together this first video.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's a very exciting project, and I think everybody who has been to it can't wait for it for next year. I know you had a lot of people lined up ahead of time waiting for the call to say, hey, the free tickets are here, let's go. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at some of the attendees reacting to what they saw. And again, some of these folks were just attended this year for the first time. Some of them are second-year attendees.
I went last year. It was very interesting. I met a lot of interesting people, including a fellow I'm working with on maybe some business things. So it was both the connections with the people who came and listening to the talks.
Well, I'm an artist, or I'd like to think I'm an artist. So it's this wonderful collaboration of thoughts and ideas in a very visual manner. And it's really just about collaboration, idea sharing, and trying to get something started, even if it's on the very grassroots level of talking person to person. So I don't know, it's a really fabulous event.
I think it's pretty cool. It covers a wide array of topics, and they kind of spur ideas that you might make you think of things in different ways you might not have.
It's awesome. It's really good. I really enjoyed everything I've seen so far, especially some of the stuff that they have out here in display. It's really nice.
We're on a class field trip from James River High School, so our old teacher wanted to bring us to see TED Talks because we watched them in class before.
So what do you think of today's program?
I think they're really cool. Most of them are pretty interesting, and some of it's stuff that we learned last year in our teacher's class, and it relates in different ways to what we've learned already, so I'm really enjoying it.
I really like it. It's enjoyable, and sitting up front, you get a good view of everything, so it's really fun.
TED is a brilliant organization, and when they came out with the X project, that was great. When it was a NASA project, I knew it was fantastic. I'm at that age where I grew up with NASA. It's the most important organization from the time I was a child to now. Whatever it takes to spread great ideas, especially from here, who could beat that?
Who indeed. Boy, you know what I noticed in those conversations is the powerful opportunity to network with people, because there really are not many places for artists and entrepreneurs and technology folk to get together in the same space.
Well, that's how TED came to be, that over 20 years ago, technology, entertainment, and design was put together, and then they invited other world-renowned speakers, and they came up with a format, and then it was posted to the web in 2006, got a following. TEDx licenses followed about 16 months ago, and we have put on some of the most thought-provoking, incredible, emotion-stirring speakers, and put them in an environment with people who they can speak to as well.
It's a fantastic thing. I wish you great success, and they probably already starting to plan next year's. I'll be back in a moment with a look at some cheerleaders who refuse to lay down their pom-poms. In my adult life, I can tell a former cheerleader a mile away. They're the enthusiastic ones who get everybody else excited about going for the goal. But we couldn't resist bringing you the story of some Norfolk State cheerleaders who are still getting it done on the sidelines. They started this Cheerleader Alumni group way back in 1976. And while they may not be able to kick as high or rock those short skirts like they used to, this is truly a spirited sisterhood. They practice several times a month. They come from all over the country, and they have been to each other's weddings and celebrated the births of their children over the years, and it just keeps on growing as an organization. So if you'd like to see the NSU alumna cheerleaders in action, you can do so at the Norfolk Grand Illumination Parade. That's coming up tomorrow. They will be marching and they will be cheering. Well, there are lots of ways that you can reach us here at What Matters. On our website, it's whatmatters.tv. That's where you can watch this broadcast or any of our past shows. Drop us an email, join us on Facebook, sign up for our weekly newsletter, and we'll let you know what we're working on for you as soon as we know what we're working on for you. For more local talk, I hope you'll join us on the radio dial each weekday from noon to 1 for Hearsay. That's right on 89.5. Public radio for Hampton Roads. You'll listen in live every weekday at noon, and maybe we'll take your calls. I would look forward to that opportunity. Thanks again for watching. I'm Cathy Lewis. We'll see you next time for another look at What Matters.